Hello guys. Welcome to this new workshop. My name is Edouard. I'm product manager at Oscillator, and for the past month I've been working on the V collection, and particularly on two instruments that are the Jun-6 and the Jup-8 V4. So today we'll talk about these two instruments, and I don't want it to be a tutorial or just a product presentation. What I will do instead is navigate through the instruments, talk about a few of the features that I think are important in the product, and show you some tips that I think are useful and good to know, so that you can try this out at home or when trying the demo if you download the demo on our website. So first of all, we'll talk about the Jun-6, which is a reproduction of the Juno 6 from Roland, a synth that has been made back in the 80s. And then we'll talk about the reproduction of the Jupiter 8, also from Roland. So Jupiter 8 is kind of the big brother of the Juno. So yeah, we'll explore these two instruments. I will try to give you a few tips and tricks so that you can, try this out at home. And yeah, so let's start with the Juno. So the Jun-6V is a reproduction, like I said, of the Juno 6, which is very close from the Juno 60 as well. So we wanted to reproduce this instrument because even though it's very simple, it does really its own flavor, and in many tracks you can recognize its sound, and especially for one particular aspect, which is its built-in chorus that it's equipped with. So as it's very popular, the price in the market these days is really high, even though it's a pretty simple instrument. And we really wanted to be able to deliver this sound to the people and, do our best, do the best of what we are known for, which is modeling electronic instruments and bring the sound at home for those who can't afford it. So yeah, so let's start to dive into the Jun-6 and talk about the features and some tips and tricks that we can find inside of it. So as you can see, it's really simple. The Juno basically only has one oscillator, and it's basically a DCO, which was quite new when it was released because it's a digital oscillator. And unlike, for example, the Jupiter 8, who was VCOs, which are voltage control oscillators, these ones, this technology allowed to remain always in tune, meaning that when you come on stage, you don't have to worry about warming up the synthesizer or tuning it before the performance or whatever. So this was quite a highlight in the industry because this was subtractive in a synthesizer, and still compared to the DX7, which came a little bit later and so on, it was competitive because its sound was super rich and really interesting for a lot of different music genres. So let's explore the oscillator and listen to it. So there is nothing really special in the beginning. You have a saw wave. And also an alternative is the square wave. And you can basically also mix the two waveforms. And that's it. So on the square wave, you have an Lfo modulation to create some kind of vibrators and the pulse width. On the pitch, sorry. And then you can modulate the pulse width manually. Also with the Lfo, like this. And what I prefer to do is modulate it with the envelope. So like this. Select envelope on the switch and raise the slider. So I will just make the envelope slightly longer with a little bit of release, and like this. I like to modulate modulate it with the envelope because it follows the overall amplitude of the sound, and you know it's kind of organic with the rest of the sound. And you can see that like this, just with one oscillator, one waveform, and not even the filter, you have a really beautiful sound and organic sound. So yeah, that's it. We won't spend too much time discussing about the DCO. Then I think what we can do is jump on the filter, because it was quite a hard task to model it. So the filter is a VCF, that stands for Voltage Control Oscillator. And well, it's a low pass, so it only cuts the high frequencies if you lower the cutoff. And we had quite a hard time to model it, because even though it's the same of the Jupitor-8, or well, almost the same circuitry, it doesn't behave at all like the Jupitor-8. So this one is more aggressive, and if you push the resonance pretty hard, the resonance and the cutoff will tend to, you know, fluctuate, and it's like a fuzzy and shaky. And this kind of behavior is really not linear, and it can really vary depending different units. For example, our unit, the unit we modeled, didn't behave like the unit we had at the test. And for example, we had friends like Alex, who has a unit that behaves pretty different from ours. So this one reflects the one we own, and I think it's amazing. So congrats to the team who modeled this filter, because the more we advanced in the listening sessions and review of the prototypes, the more we were getting closer, and at the end, we couldn't make the difference, or we were mixing up the two sounds, the original and the reproduction, which is, I think, synonymous of being really close. So I will close the cutoff and raise a little bit the resonance and raise the envelope modulation, so you can hear some sweeps. I will make it slower by raising the attack and decay. So yeah, this filter is pretty particular and it sounds really great. So I will try to show you with a single note how it sounds. So this is almost halfway to the maximum. And I will push the resonance to the maximum so you can hear these fluctuations that I was talking about. As you can hear, it's gritty and like this. And this was really hard to reproduce. So I think we nailed the sound on this one, which is really great. So now, talking about the filter, of course, you can modulate it with the Lfo to create some kind of vibrators and stuff like that. But I wanted to show you another trick. So as you can see, you only have a saw wave and a square wave to generate the sound with the DCO, and it lacks a sweet waveform. But thanks to the filter and the resonance, you can generate a sine wave, and if you know how to do it, you can scale it properly so that it tracks the keyboard and acts like a sine wave generator. So all you have to do, it's the trick, remember the numbers. So set the frequency of the filter to 131 Hz, like this. Push the resonance to the maximum, and then push the keyboard modulation up to the maximum as well. And what it will do at this moment, it's generating a sine wave. I will push a little bit the release, a little bit the sustain, and we'll have a very nice sine wave to play with. And I really love this kind of sounds. So the keyboard tracking on the original is not perfect, so you can only track for, let's say, 1 or 2 octaves. So on this software, you can track up to the maximum. And later, we'll talk about the voice calibration. If you want to do that, make sure the calibration is set to good, otherwise it will badly track like this. It can be interesting to make it sound out of tune, but here you really need to, if you need to track, just remember that. And we'll listen to a preset that uses this technique. It's a preset called Stellar Evolution that has been made by Simon, one of our sound designers. So listen to it, it's really beautiful. This kind of sounds, and the noise really blended with the resonance really brings some further texture to the sound. So I'd recommend to try this little trick, and it can create a new flavor in the sound of the synthesizer. So next, what I wanted to talk about is something that is really important in this synthesizer. It's the arpeggiator, and basically the way we did arpeggio before was not exactly the same as the way it works on the original. So we made a new one actually, and it's really pleasant to play with. And I'm sure that if you're into a lot of music genre, but like EBM or Italo disco and all these kind of things, you will really have a blast with this arpeggiator. And yeah, so let's play a little bit with it. And yeah, so I prefer to say I'm not a keyboardist, so sorry for little mistakes I can make, but just to show you the sound. And there was one trick that I really love to do with the arpeggio. So I will try another presets to do it. So here it is. It's a preset called Girl in Africa. So like a lot of people, I love video games, and there was a little trick with arpeggiators to do, is to push the speed of the arpeggio really fast, like 40 Hz. And there's a little trick to create this kind of arcade game sounding. So if I press one key, it will just do a continuous note. This. But if I press several keys, you will have an effect that you're familiar with. So. So yeah, that was a little trick that I wanted to share with you guys. So I think that's it for the arpeggio. I won't describe all the parameters. You can explore this pretty easily by yourself or by trying the demo. I'll try to focus on little tricks or explicate only complicated things. So after that, there is, I think, what is the most important in this synthesizer, and what made its sound stand above or stand out in the era of music industry. I think that we all agree that it's because of its chorus. So basically, I have a very simple sound here. And so the chorus has 3 modes. There is mod 1 and mod 2, which are stereo chorus modes. And mod 3 is mono. So I will just do a little A/B to show you the difference and how much it brings in terms of texture and, you know, spatialization. And, you know, I really love this chorus. So let's listen to it. Maybe I will just make you listen another time without the chorus first. And now with the chorus. So it really creates a kind of texture and you know, create some space, and it's a BBD circuit, so it kind of brings some noise as well. So we reproduce this noise, and in case you don't want it, you can disable it from this little trap with the chorus noise button. It's convenient if you don't want to use noise gate on your tracks. You also have the second mode, which is slightly faster. The third mode is monophonic, so it's less obvious and the effect is less drastic, but it's really fast. So it kind of acts like tremolo, let's say. And yeah, so this chorus is really amazing. From very, very simple sounds, it can just enhance and totally change the vibe of the sound. So I really recommend to try this out. And now that we talk about the chorus, I will give you a little leak and let you know that for Christmas, you may be surprised and entitled to receive a little gift from us, like we used to do before. And this year, this gift is a remake of the Juno Chorus, basically, that you can use on any track. And it looks like this. So I'd recommend tonight to log in your account and to reach the web page. And if you come in time, it's just a Christmas offer. So if you come in time, you can receive your free Jun-6 chorus and add it to your array of effects in your DAW. So I'd recommend to try it any way you can with a guitar, with a voice, and see how it can, you know, enhance your music performance. And it's really a great tool. It really brings something else that the standard chorus is by adding a lot of texture and everything. So check it out. Next, what can we talk about? Oh yeah, let's talk about what we added to the scene that was not present in the beginning. So, for instance, in the beginning, you had, on the original unit, I mean, you had a button to re-trigger the LFOs and apply them to your sound. But this was not really fitting with Analog Lab and our current way to use, you know, a vintage to use software instruments, sorry. So instead, I replaced it with a mod wheel, and the mod wheel is directly applying the LFO on your sound. So it's kind of a shortcut. Which is convenient, so you can apply it to the filter, or you can also apply it to the DCO's pitch. And another important feature that we added is the Unison. So the Unison is stacking all the voices on one note. So instead of sounding like this, it will sound more like this. So you can tune it, or so if you detune it, it will spread the pitch of all the voices and create this kind of chorus effect, creating like. If you reduce that, it will sound very stacked. You will really hear the phasing between all the voices. And in addition, you have some portamento, which creates some slides between your voices. And this is really useful if you want to do some badass pads, basses, or even some pads. You know, it creates a lot of amplitude, and it fills the space with all the voices, and if you use it with chorus as well. You can also use it on the high frequencies like this. So yeah, that's an interesting addition to the sound of the original instrument, and you can really create some new texture with it. Now, I think we can also talk about another feature that is pretty important actually, and this is the voice calibration that is hidden inside of this panel. So what is voice calibration? Well, on the original synth, you had to service it, and you had to recalibrate and all the voices to make sure each of them sounds the same. For example, you had to recalibrate your filters to make sure your cutoff points are at the same place and not, you know, offset between each other, or also to recalibrate the pulse width of your square. And so this recreates the different behaviors you could have and the discrepancies you could find between each voices. And this is partially what made the analog sound sound natural and organic, because each voice had slight differences that made it unique, and when blended together, it would just, you know, sound more organic. So if you don't have headphones, you will really have a hard time to hear it. So I'd recommend to use headphones to listen to this. So basically what I will do is play a note with Unison so that you can hear all the voices playing at the same time. And I will then switch the modes so you can hear the difference. So I'll play one note like this with a little bit of detune, but not a lot. And now I will increase the voice calibration up to average and poor to see how much it will sound different. So it will affect the pulse width, the filter cutoff, the filter resonance levels, the volume of the waveforms, pretty much everything. You can see that with the poor it sounds rough and, you know, more natural, more beefy, and I really like the effect it has on the sound. So if I change the frequency of the cutoff and lower it and raise the resonance, and then apply some envelope, for example, and do a long sweep, you will hear that even the envelope times are affected, and instead of staying grouped together, the voices will tend to, you know, offset from each other, and which create a kind of realistic sounding to the sound. So this is without with a very good calibration. And this is with a spread calibration. So you will hear it feels like you hear more that there are several voices playing at the same time. If we add some detune, you know, you get a more realistic sounding. And if I add like 6 voices, for example, you may hear the difference pretty much more. So if I push the resonance, You feel like all the resonances are like close from each other, but not exactly on the same point. And in a lot of utilizations, it can really bring, you know, an organic feeling. It's not obvious, but the result in the beginning feels organic and way more faithful to an original instrument. So this is a pad. And I will add some voice calibration to it so that it sounds a little bit more organic, like this. Adds some depth into the sound, which is really an asset when using VSTs. Then the only things I wanted to show you on top of that is probably the assign section. So the assign section lets you map your keyboard to several parameters. So you can map your velocity to some parameters, you can map the aftertouch and the module to enhance the expressive possibilities of the sound. So here I have a kind of electric piano sound made with the technique we did. We saw with the resonance to create sine wave like this. And so we can hear that I have the velocity controlling my volume, which can make it more expressive. And if I press the aftertouch on my keyboard, it will also add some vibrato. And on top of that, I have also something mapped to my module, which is adding a little bit of noise to the sound. So if you're a keyboardist, you will think, probably think it's useful to make your play more expressive. So that's it, I think. You also have an additional Lfo and Envelope in the advanced panel. So here I use them to modulate the reverb and the delay that you have on the right of the interface. So these are built-in effects to be able to, you know, further polish the sound you're playing with. And basically, these are modulating the reverb side and the delay time. So this creates a kind of effect you can find in some movies and TV shows. So listen to this. I don't know if you watched the TV show called Dark. This reminds me a little bit the atmosphere and the kind of sounds you can make with that. So modulate the effects is really useful if you want to bring an additional touch in the sound design you're doing. So I think I'm done with the Juno. That's the little tricks I wanted to share with you guys. So as you noticed, it's a pretty simple product, but it's really efficient in the way it delivers sound. You can create pretty easily a good variety of sound and make it sound really good. So if you want to dive into the sound design and start creating your patch, this is really a smart choice to start digging into this instrument. And yeah, so it sounds good. And don't forget to check the Juno Chorus for your Christmas gift. And I hope you will enjoy both the instrument and the effects. So now I will jump on the second instrument, which is the Jup-8 V4. So as some of you may know, we already had a Jupiter back in the days, the Jup-8 V3, but we wanted to come up with a new version of this instrument. And as the previous version was really old, I don't know exactly, but the code was really old, we really wanted to, you know, start over, make a totally new instrument. So basically, we kept nothing from the previous instrument, and we removed the interface, we changed the feature set, we changed the 3D, we changed the advanced panel features, we changed the voice features, and we also built a brand new audio engine. So there's not a single bit that remains from the previous version. And some of you may ask, how can I import my presets and everything? But it's actually not possible because it's a totally new instrument. It's a different architecture, it's a different audio engine, and it's different features, so it wouldn't match. And even though we could like maybe try to fine-tune a few presets, it wouldn't sound the same. So you really need to consider this as a new instrument and start diving inside of it as a new instrument. So the challenge with this instrument is that it's one of the most iconic polyphonic synthesizer from the 80s with, for example, the RBXA. And this is challenging because it's kind of a flagship, and we really wanted to nail the sound as much as we can. And this is what we've done. So I'm so happy of the result. This instrument sounds fantastic. I really enjoy like designing sounds with it. And even though it's like with the Juno, actually, even though you're doing very simple sounds, it's always sounding very, very good. But in the opposite of the Jun-6, this one is a war machine. You have plenty of features, and you have extensive advanced panel where you have tons of tools to help you create. So this is kind of the go-to polysynth, a VA polysynth, I would say. So if you're looking for something that sounds true and organic, and that you want to do more than with the Juno and a different flavor, I'd recommend to check it out because it's really, really an instrument that is amazing, and I'm so happy to have been working on this one. So maybe we can start by reviewing a little bit the oscillators, for example. So I won't check every parameter in the synth because it's quite huge and I won't have the time to do it, but I will try to focus on what is interesting in this new engine and the huge differences between the previous one and the next one. So the new one, sorry. So first, on this one, we worked the oscillators, well, all the audio engine, and the biggest difference is on the cross modulation. So the raw sound, I will change. Yes. So the raw sound of the instrument, like this, so it's only the oscillators and sawtooth. So we implemented a brand new cross mode that sounds fantastic. If I change the modulator to a saw from to a rectangle, I need to tune it again. So as you can see, as it's not DCOs, it's voltage control oscillators, the pitch is not stable and it's not perfect. So if you tune the FM somewhere in the keyboard and not somewhere else in the keyboard, it may not sound right. So what we did is we implemented a new sync option. So the original design only syncs the VCO 2 to the VCO 1. But the thing is, the cross modulation is the VCO 2 modulating the VCO 1, which is kind of a pity because you can have a properly tuned frequency modulation. And by adding this, if you switch VCO 1 that syncs to the VCO 2, you will be able to cross modulate the VCO 1 and sync it to the VCO 2 to keep a perfect pitch and have always the frequency modulation sounding right. So if I do that, for example, now, it allows to, fully enjoy the frequency modulation benefits and staying in tune, which is really, really, really awesome. So let's listen to a few presets that uses the sync. So this sounds really classic, and I'm sure a lot of you love this kind of sound, and that may make you feel nostalgic. And so we also have more possibilities thanks to this, because the cross modulation was not as good as this one now. And now you can really exploit it and try to get some sounds that was not possible to do on the previous version. So for example, this preset. On this preset, I'm modulating the cross modulation. You have something really chemical, and you may think it's not possible to do that with the 80, a synth from the 80s, but it's actually possible. I have another preset who relies a lot on the FM and the sync. This one. I really think it sounds awesome, so I'm super happy to be able to do this kind of sounds with the Jup-8V now. So yeah, I think it worth having a close look, and the sync with the cross modulation can really bring new flavors, and I'd recommend to try this out at home as well. So another thing we really spent a lot of time to fine-tune, and that it's part of this that the synth sounds so amazing, is the filter. And the filter of the Jupiter 8 is kind of legendary. It always sounds good. It feels gritty but smooth at the same time. And it's really a sweet spot machine, and it really interacts a lot with the harmonics when you sweep. It's quite something. So we spent countless hours reviewing the prototypes, listening to the original unit, to the new prototypes, and trying to, fine-tune as much as we can until we got really, really, really close. Until we couldn't find the words to qualify what was the difference, because we couldn't really feel the difference. And now that we have this kind of, this kind of filter, you can really enjoy very simple patches, and it will always sound good. So for example, this arpeggio that Victor, our sound designer, made. It's really simple, but I could listen to this for hours. That's why you really enjoy the quality of the filter. So yeah. So I'm really happy with the result. I definitely recommend to try the, very simple patches, a little bit of envelope modulations on it, and you will really enjoy the result. Then I wanted to jump on the Unison of this synthesizer. So the previous version didn't really have the same version of the Unison. The Jupiter was quite special back in the days because its Unison was polyphonic. And so Unison is stacking up all the voices of the synth to the same note. So on the Jup-8, you basically had a pool of 8 voices. And now we can merge them onto one note or divide them if you press several notes. For example, if I press one note, I have all the voices sounding on the same key, but I can also press, for example, 3 keys. The number of voices is split depending on the number of keys you're pressing, so it's really, really convenient. So another thing that is interesting to look at is the pan spread feature that will shift the voices in the stereo field. And so used in conjunction with the Unison, you will hear that it opens up, which is really amazing. Like this. So you will have some voices on the left, some voices on the right, and some voices in the center. So it's really a great asset, and with some patches afterwards you will hear that it's really preeminent and that it can create amazing results. So I will load, now I will stay with this preset now, and I will talk about a very important feature that we saw before. It's the voice dispersion. So here on the Jup-8 it's quite different. You have 3 modes. And you also have a custom mode that lets you fine-tune the dispersion of the voice by yourself. So, like the Juno 6, it affects like the pulse width, the envelope times, the cutoff, the resonance, and the modulation levels. But it also affects the pitch here because a Jup-8 is really unstable. And for example, when we developed this plugin, we calibrated the unit, and I don't know, 1 or 2 months afterwards, the envelope times were totally different between each voices. So you could like press a chord, and a note would end like 4 seconds or even 10 seconds before the other, which was a mess. But it's also that can create like amazing results. So, for example, if I increase the voice dispersion to level 3, you will hear that the square will sound different. I will put some rectangles to the result better. So this is without, and this is with. So it creates, like, especially with the rectangles and the pulse width, it creates some kind of beefy feeling, which is really awesome. So on this preset, you will hear the effect exactly what I'm talking about. So it's called London Square. So here there is no dispersion at all. It feels quite neutral, and with a lot of dispersion you will hear the difference. It feels really true and authentic, and this is something you couldn't do without voice dispersion, so it really brings an extra character to the sound. So with the next preset, I used a lot of dispersion, and well, I will make you listen without dispersion and then with dispersion, and it also used some pan spread. So you can hear that it's spread around the stereo field, but all the voices are kind of at the same place. And if I use a lot of dispersion, you will see that all the oscillators will start to drift because of the envelope times. The resonance may be lower or higher on different voices, and it brings an extra reality in the sound. And I think it's awesome to hear that. You have one voice, you feel like one voice in the front, one voice in the back, one on the right, one on the left, and it creates these amazing effects, and I really love what you can do with it. And another tip, sometimes it's hard to compare the voices, so if you enable the Arpeggiator like this, it will put the voice allocation in cycle mode, so each note that will be played will be a different note. So if I play like this, I will use square. And if I increase the dispersion, you will see that the pulse width will change, and you will hear a kind of pattern in the voices that are being played. So if I lower the cutoff frequency and increase the resonance as well, this is because of the dispersion. So if I remove it, I totally remove it, you won't hear any different. And if I push it hard, so this is the dispersion, and it can be creative if you use it your way. So I definitely recommend to try it out. So I think that's all I wanted to show you on the main voice. Maybe we can jump in the advanced panel for a little bit, and then we'll need to jump for the questions and answers. So on the advanced panels, you have a modulation section, and so you have two LFOs and a modulation mixer. So the two LFOs can increase the power of sound design you can have with the instrument. So for example, with this one, I'm modulating them between each other and modulating the cutoff, which creates this kind of chord staccato generator. And alongside some pan spread, it's amazing. This enhances a lot the possibilities you can do, and you have so many parameters you can assign these LFOs to. Be free to try and make your own sounds. So I won't dive into the parameters of the LFOs, but you have a lot of possibilities, like use them as envelopes, to bend the waveform, do a lot of things. Do not hesitate. Get your hands dirty and be creative with them. It's opening up a new world of possibilities in the sound design. So this preset is called Random Melodies. It's been made by Simon, one of our sound designers, and it uses the modulation mixer. And the modulation mixer can be used in a lot of ways. So this one is using it to self-modulate the envelope and make it sharper. So a little trick, if you want to route your envelopes to any parameter, you can route them directly to the modulation mixer and then assign them to a destination. And if I remove the effect of the modulation mixer, it will like remove the sharp aspect of the envelope. No. Another trick with that is that you can use it to create modulation of modulation amounts, which you can do without it. So if you want, for example, the effect of the envelope to be only present when the LFO is up, it's really convenient. Yeah, so that's another little trick you can use in your day-to-day sound design. So now, one thing that is important that I wanted to talk about is the sequencer. So on this preset, I'm using, so the sequencer has a lot of parameters. I won't cover them all, but basically you can, on the first part of the sequencer, you have notes, a note area, and you can alter your melodies that are being played. So it's an offset generator. So if you press chords, it will offset your chord. If you press a single note, it will offset your note. So basically, I will make you listen to the sequence and show you only the thing that I want you to pay attention to. So this is the sequence. So on the right, you have the accents, and the accents are basically adding an additional envelope to the filter to create variations. So the accents can be seen on the bottom. So at these precise points, you can hear the accents now. And I can increase the decay of the additional envelope, like this. It's amazing to create some build-ups. And so you have a second part in the sequencer, which is the mod sequencer. So you can send modulations to anywhere you want. What I like to do particularly is to modulate the decay on a per step basis. So you can create further variations to your sequence. And here it will modulate my accent decay and level, which goes from this, this, and with the mod multiplier, you can change the speed of the modulation sequencer relatively to the first sequencer. So I wanted to show you another preset that has been made by Victor, which makes really, really smart use of the sequencers. This one is called the double sec. So it uses the first sequencer to create a first melody and the second one to create a second melody. So let's listen to it. So the first melody is this one. And the second melody is created by the mod sequencer, and it's this one. And yeah, it's really, really smart, so I wanted to show you guys this little trick. So be creative and try it by yourself. The last thing I wanted to show you that is really important to me is the keyboard section. And here you can assign 3 parameters per parameter per keyboard parameter to your sound. So it's really something that you can use to bring expressivity and further depth in the playings. So here, for example, I have the velocity controlling the volume and the filter. I have also the mod wheel that is mapped to some effects, and the keyboard tracking that is controlling my envelope times to make it sharper or longer depending on the frequency I'm playing at. So if I raise my mod wheel, I will add some effects. And that's it. I think I covered the little tips I wanted to share with you guys. Of course, there was the effects section here that I've used in this patch and that is used pretty much everywhere, so be sure to check all the available effects. So I think I covered the little tips I wanted to show you. If you need more information about the usage of the instruments, be sure to check out the tutorials that we have online, and also in this new section located on the right, you have a tutorial section that will explain you all the different modules in the synthesizers. So be sure to check it out if you need more information. So now I try to answer some questions that you sent on the chat. So oh yeah, I forgot to mention, these two instruments have been released with the V collection, and currently there is an intro offer. So depending on the number of instruments you have on your account, you may be entitled to different pricings. So it's this offer stands until the January 10th. So be sure to check it out and make sure to benefit from this pricing before it ends. And of course, yeah, send us some questions if you need some answers. Our support team will be happy to answer your questions. So the questions of the chat, let's go. Well, I think I covered this question. What has been improved in the updated version of the Jup-8V? So basically, the new Jup-8V is a brand new instrument. We did we did a remake of the wall interface, so it's a new 3D. We did a remake of the wall advanced panel interface. We changed all the advanced features and the feature set of the core of the instrument. And it's a new code structure and it's a new audio engine. So basically, there is not a single bit that remains from the previous instrument. It's a brand new instrument, and you can't really compare saying that we improved it because it's a brand new one. And make sure to check it out yourself, and it's really different from the previous one. And yeah, that's it. So, is the Unison Bass Harp a built-in patch? No, I think I made it myself. If you drop a line to the support and ask them the preset, I can send it to you. There is no problem. What happened to the dual split mode in Jupiter 8V and why? Really happy with the update, except for this. Yeah, I know. Well, it was a tough choice, basically. But so the split mode was introduced in this synthesizer and created quite a lot of positive vibes back in the days. But nowadays, first we try to watch the usage of the synthesizer, and we noticed that only a few people were using it. On the other hand, this feature creates a lot of complexity in the workflow, because it means having 2 different side panels, 2 different voices, and this creates, like, complexity in the product. And at the same time, it doubles the CPU consumption. So, we had a lot of meetings about this topic, and afterwards we decided to focus more on the core sound of the instrument and on making sure that it can be handled on all the computers, or at least the minimal requirement that are specified for this instrument. So, sorry, but we decided not to do it, and I hope that you will still enjoy the instrument and focus on the core sound. Next question. Why didn't you implement a step sequence and modulator in the Jun-6V like the other instrument? So, like I said in the beginning of the stream, one thing we really wanted with the Jun-6 is to keep it simple. We really wanted to offer an instrument that is really easy to program, that is not intimidating, and we decided to keep it to the core of what it is, meaning a simple voice, the chorus, a few effects, and a few modulators on top of that. And this is a choice. We could have, stuff it with a lot of extra features, but we really wanted to preserve the simplicity of the instrument and the core sound. Will I keep the Jupiter 8 V3 if I download the V4? Yes. Like I said, it's 2 different instruments, so it's 2 different products. So you can have both installed at your computer, and the counterpart is that you can't import the presets from one to another, sadly, because the engines are not compatible. You don't have the same features, so it would be really hard to make some parameters match, and the sound, of course, would be totally different. Okay, so how did you model the oscillator drift on the Jupiter 8V? So it's not really a drift, it's voice dispersion. And what we did is, instead of measuring only one voice in the synthesizer, we measured all the voices, and we observed the discrepancies we could find between each parameters. So after that, we tried to establish a range of drifting, and then we did like 3 presets that we thought were corresponding to a good calibration, another one to an average calibration, and another one to a bad calibration. And of course, there is a custom mode, and this is what you will use to make your own variations and create kind of your sound. So yeah. So this question, I already answered it before, so I will skip to the next. At the moment, we started to work on the new Apple architecture. So the question is, are we planning to optimize the M1 support, so the new CPUs in the new Macs? And at the moment, we started to look into it, and I'm pretty sure that we will be compatible with them. I don't really know the details and how it's different to handle this kind of CPUs, but I'm pretty sure that it will be better than with the current ones, because these are really more powerful, so you shouldn't worry about this, I think. Is there any attention to automap the Arpeggiator instruments parameters to push to in the future? That's a good question. I personally own a push, and I would love that it happens at some point. The only thing that is difficult is that push uses the order of the parameters, and we can't really provide a deep integration. So we can try to reorganize the parameters and make them fit into the push. Otherwise, we will need to work with live to make it happen one day. But that's definitely an interesting thing to dive into. And as we are in very good terms with live team, maybe it will come one day. For the Jup-8V, can you influence the ARP with VST drum machine trigger mode via notes? Well, no, you can't. You can send triggers to make your arpeggio move forward, but you can send a request to the support team. Maybe we can think about it later on. Okay, and that's the end of the live stream. So I hope that it was okay and that my keyboard playing was okay enough to make you discover the sounds. And if you have questions, of course, feel free to contact us through the support team. And don't forget that the intro offer for the V collection is up until the January 10th. And for those who missed the Jun-6 part, today we release a free Christmas gift, and this is a FX version of the Juno Chorus. So I'd recommend to check our web pages and try to get your gift in time. So the offer is limited, so jump on the occasion and let us know what you think about the chorus effects if you get it. So I've been really happy to be with you guys here. So I hope we'll see each other next time. And until then, I wish you a very good Christmas and a good end of the year 2020, and let's hope for a better year for 2021. So take care and bye-bye.